Hi, everybody. My name is Kobe Warner. This is KOBLIZZY. Welcome back. Super excited to be here as always, and so much to talk about, per usual. So let's get into the music. I'm not going to do the song of the week just yet because first I want to talk about how my favorite song, Flowers, is breaking records left and right. I don't know what happened. Like, Miley got a new record label, I think, because I think Plastic. Well, I know she got a new record label, but there's such a difference in how the public is appreciating her music. But her last album that came out in 2020, Plastic Hearts, was fantastic. I was a part of the release. I was so into it, right when it came out. And it did well, and it was a rock album, and it was well received. But I just feel like it deserved this acclaim and attention because it was fantastic work. But nonetheless, I'm so happy she's receiving credit for her fantastic. Like, Flowers is so good. It's simple, but there's just so much I mean, gosh, there's so many rumors since I talked about it last week. There's a rumor that, well, first of all, lots of rumors about him cheating. I said he's cheated allegedly. I read somewhere allegedly 14 people. Like, that's crazy. I don't know if that's really true. You know how the press and the media and Twitter and the internet blows stuff up. But there's lots of rumors he cheated, and where there's smoke, there's fire. And also, in the beginning of the music video, Miley Cyrus is wearing the same dress as Jennifer Lawrence. And I don't even want to talk about this because I don't want to fan the flames of like hating on women because Liam is responsible for his cheating if he did that. So be mad at Liam. But also, it's not our lives or our business, and it was probably a long time ago. But Miley, in the beginning of the music video, when she was wearing this gorgeous gold dress that I talked about last week, I was not aware at the time that that was also a dress that Jennifer Lawrence was wearing, photographed with Liam Hemsworth at some point in time, I guess during the Hunger Games stuff. And so, like a decade ago, but anyway, it didn't help like her case online. And you know how people are, they pile on. So I don't want to be a part of that. I love Jennifer Lawrence. I think she's funny and relatable and not like other girls, but like in a fun way. Like, I don't think she's annoying. Anyway, let's talk about positive stuff like Flowers breaking records. It's become the fastest song to surpass 100 million streams on Spotify and the first to hit the milestone in under 1 week of release. It, as of yesterday, has now sold over 500,000 units in the US. It's the first single of 2023. To reach this milestone, the first single that came out in 2023, Flowers remains at number one on the global Spotify chart with a new daily high of 18.5 million daily streams. It has spent 6 days at number one. That was yesterday. So it's breaking a lot of records, not breaking, it's broken a lot of records, more than just the three that I've mentioned. But like, Flowers is eating, and I'm super excited for the album. March 10th, everybody pre-save Endless Summer Vacation on Spotify or Apple Music, or pre-order it if you want to pay, $10 for the CD or the digital album or whatever. It's all on Miley's website. But let's support her. She's a legend, and she's been working for so long, and she deserves this love. Women deserve the acclaim and love that they deserve, and a lot of times they don't get it. Like Jennifer Coolidge, I'm so happy she's having a renaissance. She's winning awards left and right. Won a Golden Globe and a Critics' Choice, and other things for her portrayal of Tanya in The White Lotus season 2. My mom and I recently finally watched it, and it was hilarious. And like the scene where she's like pew pew, blah, 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 like shooting the gun. It became a meme. I saw it on TikTok, obviously, but I didn't like know what was happening. Anyway, it's funny. I'm not going to spoil it, but you should watch The White Lotus season 2 and season 1 if you haven't seen The White Lotus. It's a great show. The reason I'm wearing a bandana is because I have a hair mask, and you can see my hair in a little bun back there if you're watching the video on YouTube or Spotify. Yeah, I have a hair mask, and it's green. It looks crazy. So to protect my headphones and not looking crazy on the pod, I decided to put a headband. Not a headband, bandana on. So that's why that's there. In case you're curious. I also want to talk about SZA breaking records, because she's broken a lot of records too with her album SOS that I love and talked a lot about in last week's episode. Also, along with Flowers, SOS is to remain number one on the U.S. albums Billboard chart for the 6th week with 119,000 albums sold in the 6th week. That's a crazy number for an R&B album. And there's many R&B albums that deserve that much love, but I'm happy this one's getting it. I love SZA so much. The longest running number one album by a female artist released in 2022. Good for her. She beat Taylor Swift. And they were both so supportive to each other on Instagram stories. Taylor posted something about how Antihero is now her longest running number one single. I think it's 8 weeks. And she mentioned how she loves SZA's album because that was at the same time that SZA had broken the record. She'd broken some record. I forget which one, but she's broken a lot, people. I can't keep up with all of it. But anyway, SZA reposted it and also congratulated Taylor. And I love women supporting women. Let's all support women. Women deserve the same love that men, like the way men just dominate the music charts. They just put out random ass songs and they're always like number one. And I'm like, I don't know. There's so many women who deserve so much love. I just feel like I also listen to a lot of female musicians and female artists primarily, like more than men. It's just a preference. Men always say they have a preference. Men love to be around men. Why are men so happy around men? Let's ask that question. Straight men love to be around other straight men. But then don't want to admit that they like spending time with each other. Anyway, we're not talking about toxic masculinity in this episode. We're talking about something a lot juicier and a little bit more traumatizing, not for you, for me in the past. And a very real crazy story that I'm going to try to segue into gently, but it's wild. I grew up in the South, and if you listen to this podcast, you're aware. I still live in Georgia, but now I live closer to Atlanta. I grew up in southern Georgia, way, way down at the bottom near Florida. And there was this church on the island that I grew up around. And when we first moved to southern Georgia in 2009, we went to a couple of different churches when we first moved there. Just to test them out. My mom and my dad and I. And we found this one church and we really, really liked it. They really draw people in, everybody, with the production value. They had a lot of money. It was a very big, gorgeous building, it still exists and is very successful and very functioning. And it has even expanded into a new location. They have another location on the mainland off the island where I'm from. And, so yeah, I'm not hurting them by telling the story. They're thriving, and I'm not going to say their name because I don't want to get sued. And I won't say anybody's name. I'm just going to refer to everybody as their title at the church, and to the church as the church. So we started going there when we first moved to Georgia in 2009, and I went there for a very, very long time until 2018. That's almost 10 years. The first couple of years I went to the church, I just attended the kids program. I was just like, a member of the church. We actually never officially joined. I don't know, if you're not religious, you might not know this, but when you attend a church, you have to officially join the church to be in the church. And we actually never officially joined, randomly enough, despite how involved I was, which I'll get to. But, sorry, I have to take a lot of deep breaths just to ground myself telling this story. Let me take a sip of LaCroix. I love my LaCroix. Honestly, I should get paid for how much I drink LaCroix on this. When this podcast gets popular, maybe I'll get a brand deal with LaCroix. I would love it. I'll take it. And it's very real life love. If you follow me on TikTok, you've seen my fridge. And if you haven't seen my fridge and you don't follow me on TikTok, you should follow me on TikTok to see my fridge. Back to the church from hell. Which is ironic, but true, unfortunately, in this case. So I volunteered there after going there and just being a regular attendee for a couple of years. I started volunteering in the kids program, hosting with my friend at the time. I mean, fun girl. We just, fell out of touch. But we hosted the kids program together. And that was fun. And then I eventually got upgraded to to singing in the big atrium with the adult band. One of the only kids, one of the youngest people to do that I had ever seen do that, at least in the church. But I was a good singer and they knew it, so they welcomed me. And the worship pastor was a very, very nice man, and he was kind of like the music director. His title was the worship pastor. But I'm actually getting a little anxious. I don't really care that much. It's just I don't care that much anymore. but reliving the story is a little wild. So this is a solemn episode a little bit, but there's a there's a positive ending. You see me now, so the church had a lot of money. A lot of production value was put into the performances, into the sermons. They did hit, contemporary Christian radio songs. Also, it was a lot of white people. I've neglected to mention that it was a very white church. There was a skosh of diversity, but not a lot. I remember one service, they wanted me to sing Take Me to the King, I think, Tamla Man. Because they wanted to bring a little soul to the church, is what they told me. You might be able to tell how that sounds like a microaggression, because it was just a bunch of white people, and I was bringing the soul. They were so annoying. They would make jokes about like liberal people backstage. There were little red flags about them being, but it was a conservative place. I was used to putting up with conservative people. Now it sounds crazy, but I'm not used to that kind of community anymore and dealing with those kind of people. And I'm still closeted at the time, which was a part of the story. And a part of the story, God, you can tell me like I'm beating around the bush. I'm going to get to the point. So there was a lot of production value there, a lot of money. I really liked performing there because it was fun. It felt like a concert. It didn't feel like church. June 2018... at the beginning of June, I hadn't yet came out. I came out to my friends on June 11th, 2018. I came out to the public on June 24th or 25th, 2018. I always forget, in a YouTube video that I've mentioned before on this podcast. And at the beginning of June, I had not yet come out in 2018. But at the beginning of the month, I updated my Facebook profile with a little profile picture frame. If you use Facebook or have ever used it, you might be familiar with what I'm saying. But it was like a pride celebration thing. So I was like updating my thing to celebrate Pride. And because I'm not saying any names, I think I can read these text messages without getting sued. It's been like almost 5 years, so I'm going to. So the worship pastor had texted me. Probably almost 50 years old at the time. I was 15, so the texting for gigs and stuff wasn't weird, but this line of communication that I'm about to tell you about was very strange for an almost 50-something-year-old man to be having with a 15-year-old child who, despite acting very mature, is still a child, a minor, a kid. He says, quote, "Your FB post caught my attention celebrating Pride Month. I'm curious where you land on that. If you are just being kind, or if you are in fact celebrating that lifestyle. That's a sincere but critical discussion for our leadership. That's totally an in-person convo, not a text thing. I just want to get to know you better because I see how amazingly gifted you are, and assuming our visions, heart, doctrine all line up for the church. I would really like to launch you more in your gifts with us. Let's grab coffee or lunch or whatever." Spelled WHATEVAH. "When you get back in town." I was out of town at the time. The threatening kind of language laced in that. Basically, if you like gay people, you can't sing at our church, is what they were saying. Like that was a big deal. Like obviously it was fun, but if it's this serious, it's not that deep. So I responded, "Hi, worship pastor. Meeting up and discussing my views on the LGBTQ plus community will not be necessary. I completely support and celebrate people being LGBTQ plus. I was still in the closet. And because your message was a very nice way of telling me that my support for the community is an issue for the church, I will no longer be singing for the worship team. In fact, I will no longer be attending the church. I do, however, thank you for showing me that my support for people loving whoever they'd like is an issue at the church. Inclusivity is very important to me. Have a wonderful evening. God bless you." For a 15-year-old, I read that, man. Like, eat, Kobe. And I'm happy I could see through his bullshit, and I really saw what he was saying. I've never been dumb, even when I was 15. And so then he responds in a manipulative manner, in my opinion. "Hey, Kobe, that's really disappointing that you wouldn't even sit down and have an honest dialogue. You misrepresented what I said. That's why a heart-to-heart, in person, is always best. I have gay friends. They know I love them, and I hang out with them, play cards with them, etc. So your conclusion is off base. The church has always had the same posture about LGBTQ lifestyle. That's one of the only things in this message that he said that is true, but I'll get there. The church has always had the same posture about the LGBTQ plus lifestyle. We preach biblical truth that God's word teaches that it is not his plan for us, and that it's a sinful lifestyle. At the same time, we also preach grace and love and tell people they are welcome to attend, and many do, despite disagreeing on our church's doctrine in that area. I would welcome a sincere conversation at any time. I respect your decision to choose not to speak to me about it and to break fellowship with our church. I'm grieved that you drew such drastic conclusions from a simple question, saying that I was simply curious about your statement. Like, what a see you next Tuesday. Like, grown ass man trying to manipulate me in my text. And I was dragging him like a 50-year-old because I responded to one more message from him. I said, I don't think the conclusion that I have drawn is drastic or off base. If my support for the LGBTQ plus community was no big deal, then why was whether or not I support the community or am just being kind towards them a question at all? The question is intended to be rhetorical, one, because I'm almost certain that I know the answer. I don't feel that I have anything more to contribute to this conversation, as I feel that I've articulated myself and my beliefs well. If you have any further questions, my parents would be happy to answer them. I will gladly send you their contact information. Once more, God bless you and have a wonderful evening. I was 15, and I told him, talk to my parents. This is crazy. So that was all I heard from him for then. A couple of weeks later, I came out. A couple of weeks after that, I posted a YouTube video. Then he emailed my mother. The worship pastor says, Dear Lisa, my mom, this is the worship pastor from the church. I didn't have Bubby, that's my dad, Bubby's email address, so I hope that you will please forward this or share with him. I wanted to reach out to you both since my recent text conversation with Kobe. I watched his video regarding my coming out video, and I also used he, him pronouns at the time. I watched his video today and wanted an opportunity to open dialogue. Please know that my intention is not to change anyone's mind or issue judgment, dumb fuck. I simply wanted you to know my intentions and heart behind the conversation I had with Kobe last week. Perhaps the conversation was a catalyst in his decision to go public with his sexuality. That was what made me mad. Out of all of the homophobia laced within these messages that he sent, the fact that he took credit for my coming out because he pissed me off really irked the shit out of me. Perhaps that conversation was his catalyst, or was the catalyst in his decision to go public with his sexuality. Goodbye, bitch. When I saw Kobe's post about gay pride last week, I reached out and wanted to have a sincere conversation with him. I was curious about his stance on that issue. I truly wanted to listen to him and hear his story. I was disappointed that he did not wish to have a conversation but respected his decision. My motivation was pure and sincere. I can understand now why he reacted defensively, because I had come out as gay. Yeah, dumb fuck. I think if I was an ally, I would have reacted defensively too, because what you were saying was asshole-ish and homophobic. I play cards with people, but we don't support anyway. Quote, Kobe is an amazing young man. He's full of life and leadership and has incredible talent. That's also true. Number 2 true thing he said in this. I've always sought to encourage him and support him in all that he does. As a parent myself, I applaud the unconditional love that you both have shown your son. Absolutely. My parents are wonderful. And he's true about that too. He's right about that. Number 3. I simply wanted to let you both know that my conversation with him was never intended to hurt him and was genuine. I respect and appreciate you all. If you should desire to have any further conversations about this, please don't hesitate to call me. I would be more than happy to meet with you. God bless you all. Signed, the worship pastor. Hopeless. People who are so ingrained with that are hopeless. I have no problem with Christians or religious people. I believe in evolution, obviously, because I don't deny science. But I also don't think that nothing, no higher power created that little big, something had to do this shit on top of everything that happened. I think maybe both can be true. I don't know. But when you get so ingrained in the religion of it all and less in the spirituality, you become an asshole like these people. But my mom, thank God for her, she responded to his email. And one of the classiest, with one of the classiest reads. I'm so proud of her, and it's a beautiful thing, and I'm happy to share this with you. Because this story is traumatic for me. Like, I've kind of been, a little stressed telling it to you, but there's more, unfortunately. But this is a good moment. My mom responds, "Dear worship pastor, thank you for reaching out. I do believe that your intention was not to harm Kobe. I also understand your position as a pastor, and I understand the church doctrine." That was something I said I was going to bring up later. Just that the church doctrine had always said that basically gay and lesbian people aren't in line with the God. But we had never read the doctrine. We were never members of the church, so I had never been given a copy of the doctrine to read. So I had no idea that the church I had been attending and loving for years was homophobic. It's kind of fucked up. But I didn't choose to go there when I was a kid. It's not my mom's fault either. I'm just saying, it was just the circumstances. She continues, "Funny but true story. My brother, also named the same name as the worship pastor, funnily enough, used to let the Jehovah's Witnesses in just to have 3-hour-long debates, them versus us. And I thought he was crazy. I never understood the point. Still don't. I feel like that's what our conversation would look like. I already know the Bible verses. I know without a doubt that Jesus Christ is real. I also know without a doubt that God created Kobe just exactly the way that he is, and he did not choose to wake up one day and choose to be gay. Unless you have witnessed and experienced that personally, I cannot expect you to understand. Thank you for everything. Sincerely. Kobe loves to sing and loved working with you and singing for the church. He also loved the kids program. Important to note, this is how she closed the email. Suicide attempts among LGBTQ youth are 5 times that of our heterosexual youth, and those numbers are staggering as it is. Although we may not feel welcome at the church anymore, I will do everything in my power to accept and love Kobe just as he is. I would hope that you do the same for your own child, but you'll probably never know. Blessings, Lisa." She chilled him. And you see why. She chilled him. The grace of an angel that my mom had with her, that when she was writing that email, she chewed him. He responds to her email. "Hi, Lisa. Thank you for your most gracious response." Even he sees it. He says, "Kobe unfollowed most of us here at the church on social media, which is understandable, but he would see that I would continue to cheer for him, encourage him, and champion his gifts. That's what I've always done. I hope I have the opportunity to demonstrate Christ's love to him as I've done for other friends that are gay." They know I don't believe that it's God's plan for their lives. This is real. I'm not making this shit up. He said that they know that I don't believe it's God's plan for their lives, but they also know that I still value them as a person and a friend. My wife and I have discussed often the reality that we have to be prepared for this in the future. We have 4 kids, and we are in a society and culture that really pushes that lifestyle into their impressionable minds. I can only hope that we would show them unconditional love. Blessings to you and your family. Signed, the worship pastor. What a... He's homophobic and an asshole. And like I said, those people are stuck. They're not going to change. So, obviously, we didn't attend that church anymore. I really developed a complex about religion and religious people. I was sad for a while about that. Well, while also riding the high of finally being honest about myself. I experienced this and just came out. But I'd also just left the church where I loved and knew people. And I worked at a restaurant on that island. And there was this woman that would come in. She was a woman. I think she was the mother of my youth group leader when I was like a really, really young kid. And so I knew her vaguely, of her from the church for a long time. And she would come into the restaurant that I worked at. And I remember one time that she walked up to the counter. She looked me in my eyes and said, "We really miss you singing at the church. We really miss you." And I don't know, something about the way she said it seemed very knowing. You hear the worship pastor's languages in his email where he said Kobe unfollowed most of us here at the church. I was a topic of conversation. It wasn't something that happened quietly or silently. I was very involved. And so my absence, I don't think it went unnoticed. But the knowingness that that lady spoke to me with at the counter of my job at that little restaurant on that little island that day, I will never forget. And she was very nice and she was very kind, but I was just like, I wish I had felt that from them. Like the thing about me is I've always been flamboyant, and myself, I don't think my personality, I became more queer when I came out, but my personality, the essence of it has always been there, and I've always been the type of gay to be asked if you were gay, and I would get really offended by that when I was straight, trying to be straight. But I would get offended. I don't get offended anymore, obviously, because I am gay, but I don't know. I don't act any different. I always act the same, and so the only thing that changed about me to them in their perspective was the word that I labeled myself with, and that was enough. I was shut out. I was done. And I definitely left the church really quickly, so as not, obviously I didn't have to put up with the homophobia. I did the right thing. But the reason I left so fast, my motivation at the time, was because I was not going to let them kick me out. And I later heard a story about how they had iced somebody else out for being a lesbian. And that's alleged, and it was something I heard, through the grapevine, but I do believe it to be true. I heard it from a reputable source. So I don't think I was the first person that happened to. And I wasn't even on the payroll. The doctrine said that you can't be gay or lesbian or support gay or lesbian people if you're on the payroll, basically. And that's not a direct quote, so don't sue me. But that was the essence of it. And I wasn't even on the payroll. I was a volunteer, but I was just well known because of my high school theater stuff, and like it was a small town, a small island. Yeah, so I hadn't even come out yet. Like obviously the email conversation that the worship pastor had with my mother was after my coming out, but the text message, it was just because I posted support online. That's how homophobic they were. That's how in tune their homophobic radar was. They were so ready to pounce on somebody for supporting gay people even. And I don't know if maybe they thought my support for gay people meant that I was secretly gay too. Maybe that's why he wanted to talk to me, because he'd always had the inkling because of my behavior, but he never wanted to ask because I'd never said anything. Maybe that was it. I don't know. But there's more to the story. The senior pastor, a different man, a man who I knew well. Not well. I knew him. I knew his family. And I felt like I knew of them well. I felt like I was loved. I'd always felt compassionate and loved by all of them. When this situation happened, and the worship pastor made it clear that I was being discussed in his emails by his language and his verbiage, we never heard from the senior pastor, whom my parents knew, were familiar with, whom I knew and was familiar with, and who really was the spokesperson for the church at the time. None of these people work at the church anymore. Not the worship pastor, not the senior pastor, not the director of the kids program that I used to volunteer under, who, when we walked through Target, craned her neck so as not to even look at me after I'd come out. Fucking asshole. Not the youth pastor. He was very nice, actually. There was a new youth pastor. He was nice. But he's actually important to the story, that new youth pastor, so don't forget him, the youth pastor. But back to the senior pastor, the person who had been there for years, who we'd always known. We didn't hear from him. And so a year later, my best friend is getting baptized. He still went to the church. And I wanted to attend his baptism, and I wanted to support him. So after a year and a half, I showed up in all my queer glory back to that place, that fateful place. Had the nerve to show my face there to support my best friend in his baptism. And the youth pastor, who I had known during my time at the church, saw me kind of from afar and kind of waved, and I just, I think I might have waved back, but I certainly didn't get close enough for conversation. But I wasn't aware that the senior pastor was present at this event also. And so right after my best friend got baptized, and we took pictures or whatever, I made a beeline for the exit, and the senior pastor caught me on the way out, and he was like, "Kobe," and I was like, "Oh, wow, interesting to see you here." And Actually, I think he might have sent this email before that. Let me check the date. He sent an email too. And I'm not even going to read this one quote for quote. Not quote for quote, but like, all the way through. He was very nice and apologetic, but it was a year late. And so when he saw me in person and he summoned me, like, not summoned me, that sounded crazy. When he, like, called me over and I was like, oh, on my way out, he pulled me into a hug and he apologized. And he said that he missed me. He said he was sorry for the hurt, the church, that any hurt that they had caused me. Which, again, in a year and a half, it's kind of too late. You guys are kind of fucking assholes at this point. And it took them so long to realize my importance and my worth and my value. I was over it. I didn't want his apologies. Okay. I think I was like, okay, thanks. I didn't say much, and I, left as quickly as possible. There was fallout. Like, when I released my first single, Hometown, there was this girl that I had known from the church who was like a member who I'd had intense conversation with about my negative experiences there. She was just really nasty. I don't know. It was just like, my experience with the religious people was strained and sad. And I don't really want to be a part of a religious organization anymore for that reason. Not that I'm not spiritual, not that I don't believe in a God or a higher power or, whatever created this gigantic simulation. Maybe AI did. Maybe AI has always existed. Maybe everything's being auto-generated. Do you think? Maybe that's why shit's so ridiculous. Because, half this shit doesn't make sense. It would make sense if a fucking robot's been doing this shit the whole time. Like, Don't Worry, Darling. Oh, that was kind of a spoiler. I'm sorry if you haven't seen the movie. Anyway, back to the church. The moral of the story is... What is the moral of the story? It was a horrible experience. And it was a sad experience. And... it was a nasty experience. I can't believe, stuff like that. It was 2018. It wasn't that long ago, people. Like, I'm so shocked stuff like that still happens. But I was 15 and I took it like a champ. I took it like on the cheek. Really water off a duck's back. And then I started going to a therapist who was a member of the church. That church was gigantic. You don't understand. It's a mega church. And so many people went there that there were so many people from the church that were involved in my life afterwards. My therapist of 4 years was, a member of that church, who I later heard rumors about her being homophobic. And so it's just I love my hometown. I miss my hometown. I like visiting, but wow, is that place wild. So the happy ending that I said this story had is really just where I'm at now. I know who I am. I don't deny my existence. I am happily myself, and I know there's nothing wrong with that, and nobody can tell me any differently, no matter what book you try to throw at me or what God you try to sling in my direction. I have complete and utter belief that you deserve to celebrate and practice whatever religion or faith that you want to, but I don't want you to impose it on me. Like that blonde woman from that news show that said that about abortion rights, your religion's not mine. I'll fight for your ability to, your religious liberty. I just don't push that shit on people, and really the homophobia of it all. Because what's funny is the homophobia was never, gay people were never in the Bible. The word that gay people were translated, the word gay, what came from the word pedophile. The word that they should have translated in the Bible when they were translating it into English should have been pedophile. Man lay with boy, not man lay with man. And that's a fact. You can Google it. I don't have to explain the facts to you. You can use the internet. Google's your friend, babe. Not to be hostile to the people who are lovely. I'm just saying, don't try to come at me. That's the truth. Period. Google it. You can Google it just like I can. Homophobia should have never been a part of the Bible. Gay people and man lay with man should have never been a part of the Bible. It's pedophilia, which is bad. Don't be a pedophile. That's fucked up. Yeah, that's terrible. I agree. Gay people aren't bad. And the entire basis of gay people being bad is this stupid ass translation that the fucking Catholic Church probably paid the translators to do. You know what I mean? Fuckers. Like, it's set us up for so much homophobia and the thinly veiled excuse that it's in the name of religion. You're a homophobic piece of shit. Be honest with yourself. Be honest with us. If you're homophobic and honest about it, at least I know where I stand with you. That's better than you being homophobic and quiet about it. I had this girl in high school who actually turned out to be very lovely and apologetic about this. But I just remember her basically being like, gay people are bad because that's what I was taught. That's what they say at church. Like, gay people, and I'm just like, bitch, And after what happened to me at the church, you can't tell me nothing about a church. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not hearing you. I have plenty of experience with a church, both positive and negative, and I don't need to hear that you tell me anything about a church. And so I remember just popping off on this girl, and she apologized later and made me a Christmas ornament. She was very sweet. Very sweet. She came around. She did. But not everybody did. But but that's another thing. There was this one father of somebody that I knew who loved me when I volunteered at the church. He was a member. But when I left the church and came out, I remember one time I saw him and his family at the movie theater, and his family came up to say hi, and he stood back. He didn't want to come say hi to me. Just like the fucking director of the KISS program that craned her neck away from me in Target. I'm like, do I have the plague? God. It's just like I have endless stories about these people. It was wild. But be who you are, folks. I came out. I posted a YouTube video about it. It was cringy, but it was honest, and it was candid. And I think I wanted to be a representation for people. You can be yourself, despite what people say. Our hometown, my hometown, the place that the people who I grew up in, was closed-minded. The nature was beautiful, but the people were kind of shitty sometimes. It was where Ahmaud Arbery died. You know what I mean? Like, it wasn't a fantastic place always. Obviously, evidently, the evidence shows. I don't really have much more to say about them. I don't want to give them much more spotlight. And I hope I don't get sued. I didn't say anybody's name, right? So I can, I'm good. I just wanted kind of to tell this story. I've been wanting to tell the story for a minute on the podcast, but I didn't really know what light to show it in. And I was like, bitch, just show it in the light of the truth. And in the name of good, lighting on your face so they can see how you're thriving. And how all of the people that crossed you at the church are now unemployed. I'm sure some of it was by choice, but how do none of you work there anymore? Isn't that funny to you? Also, the worship pastor, fucking a couple of months later, after that shit happened, he got fired. I still don't know why. And I don't think I had anything to do with it, but I'm just like, bitch, And he wanted to post about, it was like when Lisa Rinna got fired from Beverly Hills and she tried to act like she quit. That's what he did. He got on Facebook posting like, oh, I quit. No, nigga, you got fired. Let's be real. Crunchy ass and pitchy ass vocals. Let me get off here. It's 3:33 while I'm taping the pod on Sunday, January 22nd, the day before it goes up, as per usual. So I'm claiming that angel number, and I'm not going to say anything negative now that I've seen it, because I'm going to keep the light of positivity here. I am positive. They are negative. And I really just wanted to tell you my story about the church. That was the point of this episode. Like I said, practice whatever religion you want to be, but love me and respect my right to live, because I deserve my existence just as much as you do, and so does every other queer person that walks the planet. Respect trans people. Respect everybody and their liberty to be themselves. As long as you're not hurting somebody else, then be that. As long as it's not hurting someone, be who you are. And leave other people alone while they do it. I know we talk shit and gossip sometimes, and that's funny and into kiki or whatever. That's not what I'm talking about. But don't literally infringe somebody's right to exist, please. There's so much legislation. I saw this video of Laverne Cox talking about how there's been 151 bills so far of anti-trans legislation proposed in the U.S. since the beginning of 2023. It's January fucking 22nd, bitch. And she did that news position a couple of days ago for January whatever. It's been 151. Come on, you guys. You know what I mean? So anyway, I can buy my own flowers, but also trans rights. That's kind of all I've talked about in this episode. I mean, not trans. I mean, I'm non-binary is trans. Non-binary is part of the trans umbrella. I don't know if you guys know that. I think I've mentioned it before. I'm mentioning it again. Transgender men, transgender women, non-binary people, genderqueer people. It's all a thing, folks. You know what? What did Cheryl Lee Ralph say on I think it was the Critic Choice Award? People don't have to love you. They don't have to like you. They don't even have to respect you, but you better love yourself when you look in the mirror. I think she said something along those lines, and that's correct. You don't even have to respect me. They don't even have to respect you. They don't have to understand you. My new motto is, why am I going to waste my breath trying to explain myself to people who don't want to understand me? Why am I going to waste my breath? You don't want to listen. I'm not going to talk to you. Like Meredith Marks from The Real Housewives of Salt Lake City, I am disengaging from this. I don't need it in my life. So, yeah, fuck that church. But thank the heavens for the wonderful and fantastic church that I started attending afterwards. That was downtown in the mainland of the city. that was by my high school. I volunteered there because my high school choir director also worked at the church, and he would have us volunteer there. And there was this very nice old deacon or whatever. I don't know what the title is at a Methodist church, but Methodist, Pentecost. What's it called? There's so many fucking denominations. I'm cussing talking about churches. They were Episcopal. Anyway, this older man that was higher up in the church came up to me and apologized. He said, "I'm so sorry for your experience at the church." Talking to me about the other church. Saying, "I can't believe somebody would deny your talent, based off something as trivial as suggesting my sexuality." And I was like, wow. So not all Christians are terrible. Like I said, I express yourself. Be your religion. I'm just telling you what happened to me at that church. This isn't an anti-Christian thing. I just want to clarify, for all the Christians. I love you guys. But anyway, I'm going to stop rambling. This episode could have used some notes, honestly. So I hope you enjoyed it, even though it was kind of solemn. I'm sorry it wasn't an upbeat episode. I'll do something more fun next week. Please like the video if you watched it on YouTube. Please leave it a review if you listen to it on a podcast. Podcast. What is it with me and the word podcast? Saying it podcast. Anyway, leave a review if you want to on any of the podcast platforms that you might be listening to this podcast on. And follow me on TikTok or Instagram at KOBLIZZY. I hope you enjoyed this episode, like I said, and what's the moral of the story? Fuck that church. Bye. See you next week. This was chaos. I really could have used some notes, but I was like, I'm going to raw dog this one. Raw dog. That was crazy.